Come and say we should check this out. So we here. Just how good was Ayrton Senna? You feel me? This is F1. It was dropped in my Max Verstappen video. Somebody say Max Verstappen ain't the GOAT. Ayrton Senna is. I don't know, I'm just a reactor. So we gonna react.
As he is in Brazil, is in my heart. He always has been. I've loved, even though I never got to meet him. He's someone I aspire to be like.
One of the best who has ever done it in F1.
We'll hear always the stories about the legacy. We'll always live.
Like the nice guy could also be the killer.
It's the biggest
Why are you talking about him like he did?
in history.
A legend.
When the conversation of the greatest racing driver of all time is discussed, a few names are always mentioned, but one name seems to stand out from the crowd. A driver known for not only his achievements on the track, but also the impact he made off it. You would be hard-pressed to find anybody today, racing enthusiast or not, who doesn't recognise the name Ayrton Senna. But just how good was he? Well, let's find out, because you're watching Quattro Cam. My name's Alex, and this is Just How Good.
Is he dead or is he retired? I'm having trouble understanding.
Was Ayrton Senna. Now, one of the biggest question marks over anybody given the moniker the greatest of all time is who they competed against. Often the argument weighing down many great sporting figures is how competitive a time did they exist in. Senna isn't one of these. You see, during his brief time in F1, Senna would race alongside some of the sport's best. Four-time drivers' champion, Alain Prost.
There is Ayrton Senna, and right behind him is Alain Prost.
Prost is going to be very keen. Prost diving inside. Senna, I'm sure, is in tire trouble. And Alain Prost goes through.
It's Alain Prost, the winner.
This is old school F1 right here.
Champion, winning in Mexico. Alain Prost wins for Ferrari.
Three-time drivers' champion, Nelson Piquet.
The only thing he can do is if he makes contact or allows Senna to make contact with it. Senna is moving to the right, making it hard. And Nelson's got round the outside of it. Oh! Big side from Nelson and nearly contact. Tremendous stuff.
And F1 drivers and IndyCar champion, Nigel Mansell.
With Alain Prost seemingly going to win it. And Mansell going round the outside. Incredible. Up into second place. He's regained that second place.
Absolutely brilliant manoeuvre by Mansell. Fantastically brave.
All of these drivers were in their prime years, all greats, at the very best of their game. But despite this,
But what year
Senna
was
would
this,
stand
bro?
out as something
Hey,
very
somebody let me know what year this is, or he gonna mention it in the video probably.
different. Now, if you look at the stats, they would suggest that Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Michael Schumacher, and one Manuel Fangio were all better than Senna. But if you actually ask racing drivers, including some of those mentioned above, they will all say one name.
I think Senna, I will put him in number one.
For me, Senna is number one.
So basically he's saying all the F1 drivers pick Senna as number one.
For me, it was number one.
I will put Ayrton Senna as number one.
For me, Ayrton Senna undoubtedly was the number one. I would put him number one. You know, he was definitely the greatest driver.
If you ask me, I put Senna as well in number one.
And it's not just the drivers. The stats also support Senna as the master. If you take a look at pole positions won by drivers, Senna sits third, behind Lewis Hamilton and sandwiched between Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel. But if you look a little closer, you'll see that nobody is anywhere near him when you consider the ratio of entries to pole positions. That is, of course, except the legendary drivers, Jim Clark and one Manuel Fangio, arguably two drivers who could contest this crown against Senna and showcase just how far ahead of the pack they truly were. But to see Senna's prowess in action, we can look at qualifying for Monaco in 1988. Up against his team,
1988. Damn.
future four-time champion Alain Prost, a Hall of Fame driver in his own right. Senna would lay down a time a whole 1.5 seconds faster than this four-time champion. And remember, this is prime Prost. He won 2 of his 4 championships in 86 and 89, just one season after this Monaco qualifier. And Senna would often drive the famous Monte Carlo streets one-handed. Back when manual gearboxes still existed in Formula 1 cars, Senna would often take corners at over 80 miles an hour. Senna didn't just develop the speed, he always had it. In his rookie season in 1984, he would drive quite possibly the greatest drive of anyone ever. In an immense downpour of rain, the young rookie Senna would fly around the Monaco streets. As champion crashed off the course, the young Senna would charge on, punting down and shaving off, second after second, from future teammate and future four-time champion, Prost, who would eventually come to stop his car in the middle of the track and complain to stewards that it was just too wet to drive. And maybe it was too wet for any man to race in, but Senna was no man. This wet pace would become something Senna was known for.
Ain't no obstacles, bro. There ain't no obstacles in his way.
1993, in an inferior car to his rivals, Senna would carve his way through the pack, as if he was driving in the dry, whilst his competitors battled it out in the wet.
That's actually wow.
As if it was in a different reality or dimension to those around.
There's just a different type of lock in. He was just locked in.
This ruthless speed was only matched by Senna's ruthless racecraft, often putting both himself and the other drivers in a position for an accident and letting his opponents decide their fate. A high-speed game of chicken that the Brazilian master would win more often than not, showcasing his mental strength with high-level psychological warfare, beating drivers not only on the track, but in their minds. Once Senna had your number, the game was up. He knew what you would do before you could do it. He was, quite literally, 5 moves ahead of you, to demonstrate just how ruthless and cutthroat the Brazilian was. In 1990, the Japanese Grand Prix, Senna would win the championship if his former teammate and future 4-time champion, Alain Prost, failed to finish the race. So Senna did what only Senna could do. He ended Prost's race at the very first corner, because if Prost didn't win, Senna would.
Go! And Senna sprints away.
Bro, I feel like I'm in a history lesson right now. What?
Alain Prost takes the lead. It's happened. Alain Prost
The more you
takes
know.
the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside.
Oh,
And it's
shit.
happened immediately. This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner.
And that's a very sad way for this year's exciting World Championship to finish.
Notice the distinct lack of tyre smoke. Senna was playing chess, as his rivals played checkers. And I mean that quite literally. Senna would often play chess with master tactician Sir Frank Williams, developing his mind, not just his driving. Senna was built to win. Every fibre of his being was focused on one thing: winning. Because if you cannot do what it takes to win, you will only ever come second.
By being a racing driver, you are under risk all the time. And by being a racing driver means you are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Because we are competing. We are competing to win.
That's a fact, bro. Every single small gap you see, you just gotta take it, bro. That's the whole point of the race.
And the main motivation to all of us is to compete for a victory. You either commit yourself as a professional racing driver that is designed to win races.
What I say, bro, he was just a different type of locked in, bro. You see this whole interview right here just showing you.
Or you come second, or you come third, or you come fifth. And I'm not designed to come third, fourth, or fifth. I race to win.
That's order right there, bro. Hey, drop the mic. You ain't even gotta say no more. Let him know, Senna. Let him know.
As long as I feel it's possible.
It wasn't just speed and ruthlessness.
He here to win,
Senna
bro.
had in his arsenal. He was also an expert tactician. Senna would sit down and discuss every aspect of the car and tracks to make sure the man and machine were as in sync as possible. Senna worked just as hard off the track as he did on it. In an era where racing drivers were like rock and roll stars, Senna remained focused and planted, proving hard work beats talent, and hard work with God-given talent is unstoppable. His race engineer, Pat Simmons, is one of few people who could see this firsthand. There was one area at Dallas where just about everyone hit the wall. He hit it there too. When he got back to the pits, he said, "I just can't understand how I did that. I was taking it no differently than I had before. The wall must have moved." We thought, yeah, right, sure, the wall's moved. He was very insistent on this, so after the race, we went out and had
The wall moved.
a look. The wall had moved.
So the wall did move.
It was concrete blocks, and someone had clipped it, moved it just a few millimeters. And I mean,
And he clocked it.
just a few millimeters. And he had been judging it that perfectly. Senna did all of this whilst driving in what can only be described as a jet engine on wheels. The racing cars of the day had very little downforce, making them squirrely and nervous. Add in the 1,200 horsepower engines, a whole 200 horsepower more than modern cars, even with their electric assistance, and you can begin to understand just how much skill was required to keep these cars the right way up. But outside of all of this, Senna was also one of the most compassionate people ever walk the surface of the earth. He was deeply religious and believed in living life right in the eyes of God, even risking his own life to save the lives of others.
Friday morning was nice and sunny, but not for Eric Comas, who crashed heavily in a fast Blanchimont sweep before the pits. Ayrton Senna was the first to reach the scene of the crash, and he rushed to help the motionless Frenchman.
That's called sportsmanship. Yeah, he really just stopped the race to help bro out.
Spa in 1992, Senna would stop his car and run down the track, dodging his fellow competitors' cars by inches, so he could check on the welfare of...
That's why, okay, now I'm starting to understand why he's the GOAT. It's not just the racing, bro. It's the selflessness.
Driver Eric Comas. When he reached the car, Comas was unconscious. Senna turned off his engine so to avoid a fire and stood there in the middle of the track, holding Comas's head upright to help protect his spine. He literally stood in the middle of a live racetrack to make sure somebody else was okay.
That's a good man, bro.
I didn't realize immediately that it probably saved my life, but then talking with the engineers and seeing the car, how the car was destroyed, and seeing the pictures and all the leaks of the cars, well, it's a day that maybe without Ayrton I could not talk about.
Crazy, bro.
He often talked about starting a charitable foundation to help children back in his home country of Brazil. And this is what added to Senna's magnetism. On one hand, he would run drivers off the track, risking both their lives in the pursuit of the podium. And in the other, he would risk his own life to save that of another driver, sacrificing time and money to improve the lives of those less fortunate.
That's a good man right there.
Senna even donated a reported $400 million to children's charities. Even donated a reported $400 million.
Did I just hear he donated $400 million on loan?
Than his own. Senna even donated a reported $400 million.
Donated over $400 million. Let's hear that one more time.
Than his own. Senna even donated a reported $400 million.
Over $400 million on donation. Yeah, that's crazy.
To children's charities during his career. A fact that was only known after his death because he wanted.
There we have it. So he's dead. He actually died. I had a feeling since the beginning of the video, but nothing proved it. Nothing, nothing talked about it yet. But he died. That's crazy, bro. So this is a legacy right here we're reacting to.
To avoid the publicity, Senna gave everything he had to those around him. In 1989, Senna and fellow driver Gerhard Berger would walk Imola to see what they could do to improve the course's safety. Stopping at Tamburello Corner, they climbed through a partition in the retaining wall to investigate the surroundings. Senna wanted to move the retaining wall back, but there was a river just behind it. He feared somebody would die in that spot. Returning in 1994, Senna would witness the death of Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger in qualifying. This had a profound effect on Senna, who had an Austrian flag in his car as a tribute he planned to unveil at the end of the next day's Grand Prix, a fact nobody was aware of. Senna would never get to fly the flag for Ratzenberger. Whilst leading the race, Senna would go off at the corner he was stood on those 5 years previous. Senna was right about one thing. Somebody would die on that corner. The 1st of May 1994 is probably the most well-known day in F1 history. The world lost quite possibly its greatest driver, and most definitely its greatest son. Senna would continue to save lives after his death. Days of mourning were declared in Brazil, and over 3...
Oh, he died while racing, yo. That's crazy. Yo. Nah, that's deep. That's actually deep, bro. After he said somebody gonna die there, and then you died there. Yo.
Million people lined the streets for his funeral procession. Such was the impact of his death. Safety was now front and centre. It had cost the sport, possibly its greatest ever driver, something that could not be allowed to happen again. And it is hard to find a word, if one even exists, when you think of all the drivers that have lost their lives needlessly. How it took the death of Senna, and not of any of these other drivers, to really make things change. So Senna was a different species.
Crazy.
A driver not only of immense God-given talent, but also immense dedication to his craft. A win-at-all-costs attitude, but with compassion for his fellow drivers and humans. Senna was perhaps the perfect athlete, the perfect human being. So what do you think to the question of just how good was Senna? Where would you rank him amongst the greats? And is Senna the greatest of all time? What we can say for certain is that Senna was not just a once-in-a-generation talent. Senna was Senna. Nothing can compare. Nobody will be the next Senna. There is only one. There will be only one. Ayrton Senna. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably one of the hardest scripts I've had to write.
The whole video just turned deep towards the end. Hey, R.I.P. Senna. So, hey, I could see why people say he's the GOAT. His racing was different, you know, and he was a good man on top of that. Cared about other drivers. You know, overall, he was a good person, donated over $400 million to charity, which it still baffles me. But yeah, overall, he's a good person. He's a good driver. So let me know who y'all think the GOAT is in F1. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let's get to 2,000 subs. I'm going to catch you in the next video. Peace out.